Once upon a time, in the hills beyond a quiet village, there stood an old monastery of gray stone. It was small, plain, and easily missed by travelers. No gold shone from its windows. No famous teacher lived behind its walls. No one went there expecting to see anything unusual. And yet, people talked about it. They talked about it because of three women from the monastery. No one seemed to remember their real names anymore. The villagers simply called them the three dancing women from the monastery. Every evening, just before sunset, the three women came out into the open courtyard in front of the monastery gate. They stood in silence for a few moments, side by side, with such serious faces that anyone passing by might have thought they were about to begin a prayer. Then they started to dance. And the funniest part is that they danced to nothing. No music, no drums. It was not the kind of dancing people were used to. It was weird and funny. One of them would raise her arms with great seriousness, then take three tiny stiff steps as if sneaking past an angry goose. Another would suddenly spin too far, wobble, and pretend to nearly fall, only to recover with a face so calm that people burst out laughing. The third, the oldest, had the strangest behavior of all. She would look as dignified as a judge, then do a ridiculous sideways shuffle that made children scream with laughter before the adults could even understand what had happened. The first people to laugh were always the children. Those children laughed freely. They pointed, clapped, bent over, and called others to come and see. Then the young men laughed, though at first they tried not to. The village women also laughed, and then the old men, who came with hard faces and folded arms, would slowly lose the battle and laugh too. Soon, every evening, the road leading to the monastery began to fill with villagers heading uphill before sunset. Some came because they were curious. Some came because they had heard the three women were funny. Some came because they wanted a good laugh after a long day. And some came because life had become too heavy, and for reasons they could not explain, watching those women dance made the weight inside them loosen for a while. Have you ever met someone who made you laugh and forget all that had been bothering you before? Comment yes below. The three women never spoke to the villagers. They never explained why they danced or what it meant. They simply came out each evening, stood in silence, and began their strange performance. Sometimes one of them would imitate a proud villager so perfectly that the crowd roared with laughter. Sometimes they pretended to argue without using words, moving in circles, folding their arms, stamping their feet, and glaring at each other with such exaggerated seriousness that even the sternest widow in the village had to hide her smile. Sometimes they acted out simple things everyone understood: a woman carrying a pot and losing balance, a man pretending to show off in the market, a child trying to act grown, a rich merchant walking as if the earth itself belonged to him. And sometimes they swung their hips so strangely and with such exaggerated force that the whole crowd burst into laughter. And even the grown men giggled like little boys. They turned ordinary pride into comedy. They turned daily frustration into laughter. They turned the small foolishness of life into something light enough to bear. And after they finished, when the sky darkened and the first chill entered the air, the three women would bow in the most solemn way possible, as if they had just completed a sacred ceremony, then disappear back into the monastery. That serious boo made people laugh all over again. So the story spread. People from nearby villages came to see the three dancing women from the monastery. Farmers came with tired backs and cracked hands. Mothers came with babies tied to their bodies. Merchants came after market hours. Widows came. Lonely men came. Even travelers passing through stopped when they heard laughter rolling down from the hill like evening bells. And almost everyone went home lighter than they had arrived. There was a blacksmith in the village who had not laughed properly since his wife died. One evening he came only because his daughter dragged him by the hand. He stood at the back with a face like iron. But when the oldest woman began pretending to be a stubborn donkey refusing to move, while the other two tried to push her with dramatic effort, the man gave a short, rough sound from his chest. It surprised him more than anyone else. Then another laugh came. Then another. By the time the dance ended, tears were running down his face. There was also a woman known for quarreling with nearly everyone. She once came to the monastery because she had heard one of the dancers was copying village women. She arrived already offended. But that evening, one of the women acted out a person scolding chickens, children, neighbors, pots, and the weather all in the same minute. The whole crowd turned toward the quarrelsome woman at once. Even she tried to remain angry, but failed. She laughed so hard she had to sit down. The village changed slowly. People still had troubles. Rain still failed some seasons. Money still ran short. Children still fell sick. Old hurts did not disappear in a day. But laughter returned to the place. People began repeating the funny movements while working in the fields. Children copied the women in the marketplace. Even arguments sometimes ended with someone doing one of the monastery steps. And then both sides breaking into laughter before the fight could grow worse. So the women kept dancing. In spring, when the air was soft and the hills were green, they danced. In summer, under warm skies, they danced. In the windy months, when dust crossed the road and leaves scraped the ground, they danced. And in winter, with cold stones under their feet and pale breath in the evening air, they danced. Years passed this way. Then, one evening, news spread through the village like smoke. One of the 3 women had died. Everything stopped. The baker left his dough unfinished. The shepherds came down from the slope earlier than usual. Women left supper half prepared on their fires. Even those who had not climbed to the monastery in years felt pulled up the hill. By sunset, the courtyard was full. There, in the center, lay the body of one of the women from the monastery, wrapped in a plain dark cloth. Beside her stood the other 2. The crowd was quiet. No child laughed, no one whispered, no one knew what to expect. All those years, the women had made everyone laugh. But now, death had entered their circle. Surely this evening would be different. Surely the dancing was over. Stay with me, because what happened next is the reason this village never forgot them. And subscribe now for more stories told like this. The 2 women stood beside their friend for a long moment. Their faces were calm, but their eyes were red. The villagers saw at once that they had been crying. Then the 2 women looked at each other. And to the shock of everyone there, they stepped back, lifted their hands, and began to dance. At first, the crowd almost felt offended. How could they dance now? How could they perform comedy beside the body of their friend? But the women danced on. One of them copied the very step the dead woman used to do best, a stiff little sideways move with a proud chin and a foolish bounce at the end. The other answered by acting out the dead woman's favorite dramatic spin, ending with a perfect imitation of the way she used to stare at the crowd, as if daring them not to laugh. A few children gave confused little laughs, then stopped, unsure if they had done wrong. An old man from the village stepped forward and said, "Why are you doing this now? Why would you dance when your friend is dead?" For the first time anyone could remember, one of the women answered. She said, "Because she asked us to." A strange stillness fell over the courtyard, as the second woman wiped her face and spoke too. She said, "If you stand over me with long faces, I will have to leave this world disappointed. If I have made people laugh in life, let me make them laugh one last time before I go." Some of the villagers lowered their heads. Then the first woman said, "She told us something else. She said many people think those who make others laugh must know little about pain. But sometimes the funniest people are simply the ones who have decided not to let pain make their hearts hard." No one replied. The wind moved gently through the courtyard. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked and fell quiet again. Then the women prepared to carry out their friend's last wish. Near the wall of the monastery stood an old wooden chest. It was long, narrow, and worn with age. Many had seen it before, but no one had paid much attention to it. The dead woman had left instructions that the chest should be opened that evening in front of the whole village. So the 2 women dragged it into the middle of the courtyard. They lifted the lid. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then, all at once, to the astonishment of everyone there, the chest exploded with funny and weird things. Bright ribbons flew into the air. Tiny handbells tumbled out and scattered over the stone floor. Painted masks bounced across the ground. A wooden puppet with a crooked grin sprang up on a hidden rod and hit the blacksmith in the knee. Little festival crackers snapped and popped like playful sparks, making children jump and then howl with laughter. One long red ribbon landed on the head of the stern old man who had asked the question. The whole courtyard froze. Then one child laughed, then another. Then the two remaining women laughed through their tears. They laughed so hard they had to hold each other for support. And slowly, helplessly, the whole village joined them. Some laughed with wet cheeks. Some covered their mouths as they laughed. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Some laughed because the dead woman had somehow found a way to play one last joke on all of them. Even the old man with the ribbon on his head finally laughed. It was not shallow laughter. It was not laughter that denies sorrow. It was the kind that rises when love and grief stand in the same place, and neither one can push the other away. That evening, the village understood the women differently. Before, people thought they danced because life was light. Now they understood that they danced because life was heavy. They danced because fields fail, bodies weaken, friends die, and hearts break. They danced because some burdens become easier to carry when people laugh together. They danced because laughter does not erase pain, but it gives pain less room to rule. They danced because if the world insists on being hard, sometimes the wisest thing a person can do is answer it with joy. After that night, the two women kept dancing. They were slower now. Their faces looked older. Sometimes they paused to catch their breath. But each evening they still came out into the courtyard, stood in silence, and began their ridiculous solemn dance. And the villagers still came. Only now they laughed with more tenderness than before. They no longer laughed only because the dancing was funny. They laughed because they understood what stood behind it: courage, loss, mercy, and a stubborn refusal to let sorrow have the last word. Years later, when both of the remaining women had also passed away, the village did not forget them. People told their children about the three dancing women from the monastery. They spoke of the evening laughter rolled down the hill. They spoke of the serious bows, the funny steps, the proud faces, the fake stumbles, the puppet in the chest, and the final joke of the woman who died. And even long after the monastery had grown quiet, something of those women remained in the village. When quarrels rose too high, someone would do one of the old steps and break the tension. When grief sat too heavily in a house, a mother might tie a ribbon around her head, make a funny face at her children, and pull one broken laugh out of the room. When life became hard, the villagers remembered. They remembered that there are people who carry sorrow without becoming cruel. They remembered that some of the deepest strength in this world wears a funny face, and they remembered that sometimes the people who make everyone laugh are not blind to pain at all. They have simply learned how to stand in the middle of it without letting it swallow them. So if you ever pass through a village where laughter comes easily at sunset, where old people still know a strange sideways step, and where children wear ribbons and act out solemn little dances for no reason at all, perhaps the memory of those women still lives there. The women from the monastery, the three who danced like fools, the three who made a whole village laugh. And perhaps that is no small thing, because there are many ways to keep a place alive. Some build walls, some build roads, some build names for themselves, and some, without fame or wealth or power, leave behind something better. They leave behind lighter hearts. Before you leave, kindly subscribe, like, and share this with someone who carries pain behind a smile. Thanks for watching.